we recommend you take this moment to do what we're about to do, which is enjoy an Alp.
Do you want to respond to President Biden being diagnosed with cancer? Are you going to call your predecessor?
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I just had my physical. You saw that. You saw the results of that particular test. I think that test is standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, good physical. We had the doctors at the White House and over at Walter Reed, which is a fantastic hospital. I did a very complete physical, including cognitive tests. I'm proud to announce I aced it. Got them all. I got them all right. You proud of me? Yes. Your husband would be proud of me for getting them all right. It's a little risk. If I didn't get them all right, these people would be after me. It would be not a good situation. But I think, frankly, anybody running for president should take a cognitive test. Everybody, we just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made. It's a terrible situation going on over there. 5,000 young people every single week are being killed. So hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up. What a shame that it ever started in the first place. So, but I want to thank Melania and for your leadership in this very important issue. It's an amazing issue. America is blessed to have such a dedicated and compassionate First Lady. I would tell you she is very dedicated. In fact, if you look at just what I heard, Putin just said they respect your wife a lot. I said, what about me? No, they like Melania better. That wasn't good. I don't know if that was good. I'm okay with it. I'm okay.
Of course, we will never leave the Orthodox people of Ukraine to their own devices. We will do everything to restore the canonical Orthodox Church in Ukraine and in the Ukrainian land. And how can we guarantee this? This can be guaranteed by the position of the Russian Federation on achieving a fair settlement in the Ukraine crisis. And once again, yesterday, President Putin reaffirmed this position following his telephone conversation with President of the United States, Trump.
Виводити наші війська з наших територій ніхто не буде. Це конституційний обов'язок мій, це обов'язок наших військових захищати суверенітет і територіальну цілісність України. Так, зараз тимчасово окуповані є території через агресію такої великої країни.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning. Today's message is war against the machine. Those that want to keep the wars going and those that want to keep the election fraud going and the globalist agenda going. We're going to dig into all of that. This is the best intel brief you will find on the web, 10 to noon, Monday through Friday for our new listeners, Eastern. We dig into the stories you must know. There's so much information out there on the web. You really need someone to cull through it to get down to the real important stuff. And that's what we do here on the SCIF. The SCIF, by the way, for those new listeners, is a secure compartmented information facility in the U.S. government where you go in to get the real news. And that's what we do here. And we're going to make some T-shirts. Don't go in the SCIF. And for Mike Johnson that went in the SCIF with Paul Ryan and came back out and started doing all the globalist stuff. I wonder what they showed him in there. We will never know, I guess. Welcome to the crew. You're clear and hot in the chat. What a great crew. We got some people showing up before the show, saying good morning to each other. Love it. Fantastic. We want to keep that going. We love to put comments up on the screen as to what you're thinking about the show. And please tell your friends, cdm.press, put us in your scan, morning, noon, and night. We are the global wire service without the globalist spin. We have reporters all over the world. We're on podcast. We're on X. We're on Rumble. We're on Gettr. We're on YouTube. We load the show after on YouTube because we have to sometimes cut pieces out, like on vaccines, etc. And so we can't live stream on YouTube right now because we want to keep. We're rebuilding. We lost tens of thousands of subscribers a few years back during the great deplatforming, as I call it. YouTube was one of those that shut us down, I think, due to our election fraud reporting, Ukraine reporting, vaccine reporting. We were just too truthful. And by the way, we're still repressed. We're still censored all over the web. Conservative Inc. won't have us on. We're going to have a guest on today. And while Chris is talking, think to yourself, have I seen Chris Gleason on any other Conservative Inc. shows? And then ask yourself, why isn't Chris Gleason on any other Conservative Inc. shows? Well, the answer is because Conservative Inc. is part of the controlled opposition in our view, and they don't want these stories out there on election fraud and what is actually going on. And speaking of rage against the machine, we're going to talk about the rage emanating from Broward County after Chris Gleason's recent drop on busting them in Broward County. We're going to bring that up on the Miami Independent and talk to Chris directly, and you're going to get it from the horse's mouth. What's going on? There's a lot of pushback in the Broward County Supervisor Elections Office. That's not true. It's ridiculous. We're tired of this. He picked the wrong county to pick on. Well, we're going to continue putting out the truth, whether you like it or not, in Broward County. So we're going to talk about that, the election fraud, the Empire Strikes Back, with Chris Gleason here, second segment. And then at the top of the hour, I told you yesterday, we're going to be doing the Ukraine SitRep Tuesdays at 11. Pete Blaber and I will dig into everything that's going on in Ukraine, and it's not good. So you don't want to miss that. This is, again, the best intel brief out there, the best intel brief show out there on the web. And we're going to continue getting better and better and better and bringing you the best guests. Speaking of guests tomorrow, Roger Stone will be with me. First hour. He's got something to say about Vindman running for Senate in Florida, and he's not happy. So Mr. Stone will be with us tomorrow. Second hour, we're going to have the foreign minister from the Afghan resistance, Ali Nazari. I've become close to him since we interviewed his boss, Masood, in Czech Republic. Dan O'Shea and I, we had Dan on a few days ago, Naval Academy grad. Him and I flew to Prague and interviewed Mr. Masood, who's the son of the Northern Alliance leader who was assassinated by the Taliban back during the Afghan war. And we became friends. And so we have an insight into the resistance against the Taliban in Afghanistan. You're going to hear directly from him tomorrow. And then later in the week, we have some really cool more guests coming. We'll let you know on those as they get put together. But again, thanks for the crew. We're already getting comments in the crew. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And tell your friends, spread the word, spread the links, all of that stuff. We'll be right back on the SCIF. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Chris Gleason to talk about the Empire striking back in Broward County over election fraud disclosures. So be right back. Stay with us.
celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order
Dr.
now.
Carlson, you may have noticed that the companies whose products you buy tend to kind of hate you. They're controlled by massive multinational corporations, and they have all kinds of weird agendas that you're supporting when you buy their products. We didn't realize that nicotine pouches, which we've used for years, were in this category. We just want a nicotine pouch. And then they lecture you and take the money you give them to support things that you hate. So we decided we're going to make our own, and we did. And it is, we can say, not bragging here, just stating fact, the single best nicotine pouch in the world. It's called ALP, and it comes in all kinds of excellent flavors. Wintergreen, tropical fruit, chilled mint, refreshing chill, sweet nectar, and a bunch of others that we're rolling out. By the way, there are 20 per tin, not 15 like some of our competitors who will not be named. Zin. And they're in 3, 6, and 9 milligrams. It is the single best nicotine pouch ever made. Go to alppouch.com. You will not regret it.
Of the Green Beret, silver wings upon their chest. These are men, America's best. 100 men will test today, but only 3 win the Green Beret.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us today. Again, we're on podcast. Put cdm.press in your daily scan. But I'm going to bring in Chris Gleason. And hold on one second. Chris, my friend,
How are you?
My chat was blowing up last night. If you have the raw data, send it. It's shameful. This guy picked the wrong county to peddle this BS. We filmed every step. Show me the raw data. It's 2 + 2 + 5. If you believe that, don't believe this guy. So that was all over the chat last night. What say you, my friend? Broward Empire is pushing back.
Well, Broward, it's really an easy thing, right? I'm not using my data. I'm using their data. So I guess the question, right? The question that everybody needs to be asking is, where's the audit logs?
Yes.
And so very simple solution. You want to see where it is. You want to see, show us the audit logs. Prove to us that you legally certified the election. Prove to us that you did not actually disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of voters in Broward County. And you know what? If you can't produce the audit logs and the machine logs and the configuration reports, well, then you know what? You can't prove anything.
So you asked for all that stuff, right? Just for the audience's sake.
Yeah. I mean, these people are absolutely, they're just clowns. That's the only thing that you can, they are actual clowns.
Well, they're criminal clowns, like from the movie It,
They really are. They
living
really
in the sewer.
And the funny thing is, right? None of these members and participants in the election corruption cartel, right? None of them. I've yet to see one piece of official documentation from the voting systems or anything else, okay, that debunks what I found. Nothing. And it's the government's own data.
I didn't even respond to the guys. I was just like, okay, you have your la la land over there, but we're going to keep reporting the truth, and you're going to keep having to respond. But what I find fascinating, Chris, is all over the web, I still see people saying, I support DeSantis. You know, Casey DeSantis will be a great governor. I mean, that's the top of the cartel food chain, right?
Of course it is. You know, them and the Bushes, because you know it was the Bush machine that helped out there. And you know, at the end of the day, you know, we really have a binary issue, right? And the binary issue is you have corrupt election officials who have illegally administered and illegally certified elections using machines that were completely uncertifiable. And I mean, that's what the math says.
We had David Clements. Let me interrupt there. We had David Clements on yesterday, and he was talking. Ed Martin is starting to talk about this. Did you see that? The certification?
I did see that. I mean, you know, and we raised these issues in Maryland a couple of years ago because as we were looking at this, I'm like, well, there's no way that this legitimately happened. These blank ballots, I mean, it just didn't legitimately nor organically happen. And so that was when we started asking for logs, for reports. And, you know, I got my hands on my first set of audit logs, you know, thanks to you hooking me up with the guys in Georgia, you know, and, you know, I mean, you know, I was shocked. I mean, I was like shocked. I'm like, I can't believe this. This is crazy. They're deleting ballots. They're deleting images. They're doing this. They're doing that. And, you know, the more and more we dig, the deeper they're getting, and you know, the more prevalent their lies are, you know. I mean, we had Ron Turner claim that, you know, that it's a blank page. We had Ron Turner also claim that blank ballot was not defined under Florida law. Well, it is.
One of the things they were saying yesterday is that, so you presented data that there were the same exact percentage of blank ballots across multiple precincts, multiple elections, multiple states had the exact same percentage of blank ballots registered by the machines, which is obviously an algorithmic result. And we presented that to this Broward representative. I won't give his name last night. And he said, well, we checked all the blank ballots ourselves. And he sent me a picture of a stack of ballots or a stack of papers. I mean, he didn't answer the question about the percentages.
Trust us, it's the gold standard. So unfortunately for them, okay, all goodwill is gone. All right. You don't, innocent people don't redact and hide and alter election records. Okay. I mean, we caught Wendy Link, you know, backdating computer systems to generate reports. And then they've since deleted all of these records from the PRR systems. And, you know, I mean, and then you have over in Pinellas County, you know, the anything related to the election records, it looks like the Epstein client list. The whole thing's a black page, you know?
Yeah.
Can't do that.
It's quite fascinating. Well, give us an update on where you are in your multiple legal challenges, I should say, because you've got a lot going on.
Yeah. So one of the cases that I was involved in, one of the first ones actually that brought up the certifiable or non-certifiable machines and the smurfing, that case is supposed to be going before the Supreme Court. That's the Gibson versus Maryland case with Walter Charlton. That's supposed to be percolating there. Peter Bernegger is getting ready to do some depositions of the ES&S executives, and he's supposed to be flying out there to meet with them at their headquarters. So that should be that should yield some interesting answers. We have the Bongiorno case that they are illegally and unlawfully using taxpayer money to defend Wendy Link against election fraud, corruption, and misconduct charges. And they're desperately trying to keep discovery from happening there. My case, we have massive structural and fundamental error by judges who have illegally and unlawfully not disqualified themselves and have ruled on my case. And so we've got a bunch of motions filed there. Here in Pinellas County, they're also illegally and unlawfully using taxpayer money to defend Julie Marcus and her numerous co-conspirators. And, I'm working on some criminal complaints for the smurfing nationwide. And we have this really big thing with vote by mail fraud. And we had a long meeting with the criminal inspectors from the U.S. Postal Service. And we were with them for about 3 or 4 hours. We had a conversation, and they had some questions. And I said, yeah, we'll get you some of those answers. And we found those answers and then some. And so I expect a nice big package to be delivered to them very, very shortly, along with a package to the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. So,
speaking of those two, Patel and Bongino are coming out and saying, well, Epstein obviously killed himself and there's nothing wrong with the Trump assassination. Or, it was just one guy and nobody was involved.
Yeah.
I just was like, what?
Well, I mean, maybe in the FBI file that they have, all of that stuff wasn't in it. All of the, I mean, technically, right? If they remove all of the really incriminating stuff from a file, well, I mean, of course you could make it look like that, right? I mean, if you delete and get rid of key data, I mean, what did they review the video footage? Oh, wait, they put it.
Yeah, right.
Oh my goodness!
And the guards were all asleep, and the door was open. It's like,
yeah, I mean, well, I suppose if you're only looking at what is in the file, and all the really incriminating stuff wasn't in the file, then I guess you don't have an issue, right? It's kind of like when Pete Antonacci, the head of the Florida Election Crimes Division, right? When he got all in a shouting match with Ron DeSantis and Uthmeyer and Cord Bird and other unnamed persons. And when he left, he dropped dead, leaving the office. And
in the hallway, right outside the governor's office for 20 minutes, nobody knew he was on the floor.
And coincidentally, the video camera didn't work either. So I guess there's nothing to see there either. So,
wow.
I mean,
wow. Yeah.
I mean, when you're committing treason, what's a couple more felonies, right?
Yeah. What's a few more notches on the old body count belt? What's wrong with that? Chris, can you come back? We'll do another segment. You got a few more minutes with you?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
You gotta
Sure.
go. All right. Be right back.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. He wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, "You use Alp?" "Yeah, I do," says my friend. "So do I," says the cop. "We all do." He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, "Drive safely, sir," and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine marriage.
We're back with Chris Gleason talking about the pushback in Broward County against the election fraud disclosures, which he brought to market a few days ago. So you sent me some screenshots. Do you want to use those, or what do you want?
Yeah, sure.
So this is the first one. What is that?
Okay, so that is a that's a page from the EAC certification and scope document. And what this part of the scope certification, it shows what is certified, what is okay for use, how is this machine set up. And one of the things I want to draw everyone's attention to is under networking, which is the very bottom of the page. And right there, it says wide area networking, use of modems. No. So modems are not approved. Wide area networking, use of wireless. No. Wide local area, TCP/IP. No. Local area networks, use of infrared. No. So essentially, from these certifications, attaching any of these devices would mean that it's not approved. And if it's not approved by the EAC, then you can't do it. Now, one of the other interesting things is if you go above the block above, right? Blank ballot. So what is a totally blank ballot? A totally blank ballot is a ballot that has not one mark on it. And these machines are supposed to identify that, because if it identifies that you have cast a 100% blank ballot, the machine is supposed to warn you and tell you, Mr. Mrs. Voter, you're casting a 100%, you're casting a blank ballot. Do you mean to do this? And we tested this. We tested this here in Pinellas County. We tested it in other counties. And so the machines are supposed to be configured to warn the voter if there's overvotes, undervotes, blank ballots. And so what we have seen elsewhere is that large numbers of blank ballots would have flagged and presented to the voter that they had, in fact, intended to cast a blank ballot. So, they kind of have a bit of a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to one of the other documents.
The number 2, this one?
Yeah. So what is a blank ballot? So the election corruption cartel wants you to believe that a blank ballot is a blank page. Well, a ballot is a ballot regardless of pages. So what they fail to account for is that if these were, in fact, a blank page, you would have a substantially higher number of ballots being shown as being cast. And so that number wouldn't rectify, right? So in the report, one of the reports that I used to determine the blank ballot percentages, called the key canvassing report, it shows blank ballots. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, the machine manufacturers, they have a definition of a blank ballot. And so this document here in front of your audience, our audience, is the result of a survey conducted by the United States Election Assistance Commission. These are the people who certify the machines. And so a biannual survey is produced every 2 years. And from 2010 to 2016, they were establishing the baseline of what the definitions of these terms were. And so Maria Matthews and her predecessor, they both defined clearly for the EAC what a blank ballot was. And so right here, the vast majority of states who took out of grant money from the federal government, they had to, as part of the compliance with that grant, they have to fill these things out. And so they have to clearly define what a blank ballot is. So that would bring us to the next document.
One second here.
And this was an excerpt from one of those surveys completed by Maria Matthews. And right here, we go back to the premise that Ron Turner, the former president of Florida Supervisors of Elections, Inc., aka the Florida Election Corruption Cartel, he said that blank ballots were not defined by law. Well, what does we have there? Oh my goodness, a blank ballot. And there's a reference to a statute. Oh, geez, how about that? And so what they claim is a blank ballot is in fact a undervote. Okay, so if a voter went out on election day and there was one blank page, and say there was 2 or 3 or 4 voting positions on that ballot, but they filled out all of the other pages of the ballot, you would have those 3 or 4 choices on that last page. They would be considered an undervote. Okay, and that too is also defined by law. It's also defined in the operating manuals of the voting machine companies, because all of this stuff, it's all documented. So when I ask for things like the audit logs and the event logs, well, there's a reason why we ask for that, because we know what we're going to see. We're going to see how they configured the machines. Did they configure the machines in such a manner that the voters were not informed that they cast a 100% blank ballot?
Right.
So what is it? Broward, the folks in Broward, if you're listening, and I'm sure you are, I tell you
they
what,
they will be if they're not now. It will get in front of them.
So here's what we want from you. Okay. It's time for the literal come to Jesus talk. Okay. And what you need to do is you need to produce all the auditable records. So that would mean the machine configuration reports, the machine logs, the audit logs, and the event services logs, because we know for a fact that these machines connected to the internet can be compromised remotely, because we found the patents, we reviewed the patents, and essentially what they say in the patent claims is that anyone skilled in the art would know that you can take control of the machine remotely and do anything in the world that you want.
Yes.
And that would include playing Pac-Man on the thing or flipping votes. And, the same machines that Tulsi Gabbard was talking about, the Dominion and ES&S, the underlying technology is fundamentally the same. So if you can flip the votes on the machines, which we know that they can do because it's in the patent claims.
Yeah.
So if you're able to access the machines remotely, which you can do anything you want. And so they need to be answering some questions, some pointed questions to us, because, this isn't a question about, a simple blank page, right? Because for every single blank ballot that we have seen cast is an actual voter whose right to cast a ballot has been interfered with. So This voter did everything they were legally required to do, and they were stripped of their right to vote. And the candidates that they voted for, they were stripped of their right to receive votes. And so this creates a constitutional crisis that must be addressed. So, Mr. Broward County, you need to produce the records. We want them all. And we want them certified that they are true.
It's very simple. I mean, they're like, well, instead of producing records themselves, they are saying, give us the data. Like you said, we got it on the state's website. Yeah. So
it's your own data, dummy.
Yeah. Well, their response would be, well, we don't know that's the real data. Well, okay. So
okay. Yeah,
whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. Chris, where do we go forward? I mean, I was talking to Clements yesterday, and we were talking about federal response possibly, because nothing's happening at the local level, obviously. What do you think?
Well, I mean, we are fighting at the local level, whether or not these individuals, these judges, even, in my case, we have judges who are materially implicated as material witnesses to victims of, participants in, beneficiaries of. This is the same judicial crisis that we're seeing at the federal level, where you have these highly conflicted judges not disqualifying themselves, despite having a clear and mandatory duty to do so.
Right.
So, I mean, really, this is going to ultimately have to go before the United States Supreme Court, because what we see here, right, is such a pervasive problem. This is a violation of the guarantee clause of the United States Constitution, because we are guaranteed a constitutional form of government. And now there's a lot of case law from the Supreme Court, a lot of rulings saying that the guarantee clause is not justiciable, meaning you can't litigate it. However, there is some exemptions to that. And those exemptions are where you have civil rights violations. And so we have civil rights violations. We have civil rights violations here in Florida, and and probably elsewhere as well. I mean, just like in Maryland, we know what's going on there. I mean, I've seen massive numbers of blank ballots in California. I've seen them in Arizona. In Wisconsin, they decide to omit the data entirely from the records there in some counties.
Well, they're doing that in Florida now, right? They don't.
Now they're doing it in Florida.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, the auditable record of the election is the only record, as far as I'm concerned, that is worthwhile. And it's the only record that they legally certified the election. So if these people are claiming that the auditable records of the elections are trade secrets, well, that means that our elections are trade secrets owned by corporations, which that's not the case.
It's called fascism. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Chris,
we have to hold them accountable. That's what we have to do.
Completely agree. Anything else you want to get out before we let you go?
If you are out there, you should go to your election administrators and ask them for the precinct level reports. And you want to see if there's blank ballots listed there. In the clean counties, you'll see 0 or very, very low numbers.
Yeah.
And usually we see the high numbers of blank ballots where there's high incidence of fraud. So get involved.
Excellent, my friend. We'll have you back. I don't think this is going away anytime soon, but thanks for coming on short notice. The chat was blowing up last night. I got to get Chris on and respond to this. Anyway, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The bird flu is circulating. We're getting more and more press, more fear mongering, more warnings about this. First, let's start with that. What say you on?
Well, what I say is it specifically is not circulating. It's in animals. There's one human, maybe 2 transmissions, no human-to-human transmission. And stand by, everybody. If there is some sort of sudden human-to-human transmission, you should immediately be suspicious that gain of function was involved with that. Just the fact that they're taking an animal virus and going nuts on it in the press and talking about it all the time, that to me leads me to believe that they have concerns that somebody is doing something with that virus, because this would not happen naturally, in my opinion.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
These food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah,
you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed Chris Gleason, one of my favorite guests because he's so accurate and spot on as far as what's going on in the election fraud, especially in Florida and around the country in certain states. I neglected to go through the mission brief this morning. Today is what's today? The 20th, May 20th. And I'm your host, L Todd Wood. Here's your mission brief. Trump to walk away from Ukraine as Putin says peace is possible. We're going to talk about that in depth with Pete Blaber here in this second hour. Gaza rage in Israel, the ongoing Gideon's Chariot operation in Gaza to move the population to the south is creating real tension inside Israel. There's always been tension there, but it's getting worse and worse. And today, the opposition leader said killing babies in Gaza is a hobby for the Netanyahu government. This set off all kind of rage inside the country. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to do all this here in a minute, but I want to play a little bit of a teaser for tomorrow, what we'll have with Masood, with the Afghan foreign leader. Spain internet blackout. Are they testing what's going on in Spain for the future of the human race? They shut down the power, and yesterday or this morning they shut down the internet for some time completely across the country. What is that? Preparation of the Pacific seabed by the Chinese Communist Party. And Josh McKoon disclosure in Georgia. A lot happening there. Georgia has a lot of tension and division. The GOP establishment is run by the Kemp cartel, if you will. They don't let anybody else in. They run power with an iron fist in Georgia and are running it not for the citizens of Georgia, in our opinion. We've reported a lot about this on the Georgia Record and GeorgiaRecord.com and on the Georgia Show, but it's getting worse, and a lot of the tension is coming out. The convention in Georgia for the GOP will be in a couple weeks in Columbus, I believe, and there's just a lot happening there and a big divide inside Georgia, which needs to be reported on. But again, once again, Conservative Inc. won't report on it at all. So tomorrow we're going to have the foreign minister for the Afghan resistance against the Taliban with us. I interviewed this gentleman along with his boss, Mr. Masood, in Prague with Dan O'Shea, who we had on, the former SEAL and Naval Academy graduate. We had him on a few days ago, but I just wanted to show you a little bit of this interview because it's really good, and it'll give you a taste of what we're going to talk about tomorrow, because Afghanistan is still there and Trump wants Bagram back, and we're going to talk about Ali Nazari about that. But here's just a taste of the two of them. A few years ago in Prague, Dan and I flew over to interview the head of the Afghan resistance who had come out of the mountains, and we did it in Prague in Europe. So here we go. Is a former Navy SEAL, an Afghanistan veteran, and a Naval Academy graduate. But as I mentioned, we're honored today to interview two gentlemen, Mr. Masood, who is the commander of the National Resistance Front, and his, not foreign minister, but what did you call it? Head of Foreign Affairs, Ali Nazari. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks. So I have a question for you. It's been a year since Afghanistan fell, or Kabul fell. But what is going on in the country? It's kind of dropped out of the news. Nobody's been following what's happening. How are the people existing under Taliban rule? How is the economy? Just what's the state of the country?
Sure. Before that, I'd like to express my to say hello to all the American people, the great people of America, and also to the veterans who spent a lot in Afghanistan, who sacrificed a lot in Afghanistan, that we truly appreciate, and we never forget the sacrifices. To answer that question, in the past 1 year, one thing which was very obvious, and this is something that we tried and we have been very vocal about it in the past couple of years, that we were very worried about the political mistake which was causing all the efforts that we put together and to go down the drain. It was the return of the terrorism, the return of extremism, and once again Afghanistan become a hub for terrorism. And this is exactly what happened in the past 1 year. Unfortunately, a very rushed decision, and unfortunately the decisions alongside a lot of other factors and issues together, it all reached to the point that the Afghanistan government collapsed. All the achievement of the past 20 years, alongside the sacrifice that it was gone. And once again, we return to the 2001, where Afghanistan is a state, is a country which is supporting terrorism, which is a hub for terrorism. And Afghanistan people and Afghan people are being hostage in the civilian situation. And we have been stripped of all our rights. Our women cannot go to school. This is unbelievable. This is not Islamic law. This is not Sharia law. This is not an any law. It is beyond extremism. They cannot go to school. They cannot study. They cannot work. They have been completely erased of the society, alongside the other ethnicities and groups. And unfortunately, Afghanistan is truly becoming a safe haven for terrorists. This is what happened in the past 4 years. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to watch. It's very hard. I can speak as one of millions of American veterans, Afghanistan veterans, and we watched the collapse. It's very personal for us because the sacrifices were teammates and brothers and sisters that gave were sacrificed their lives, and then the trillions of national treasure. And it was hard because our country has walked away.
Yes.
What do you see as the future with this hotbed of terrorism? What are you seeing? What are the dynamics with like ISIS and Al Qaeda and the Taliban? Where are they gaining their strengths currently today in Afghanistan?
Well, I need to say how sort of the connection or how the terrorism is linked with the Taliban. I need to emphasize on one of the lines of the agreement between the Taliban and America. And one of the lines comes that the Taliban will make sure they'll try to cut their ties between other groups like Al Qaeda and so on. And they will try to prevent the other groups such as Al Qaeda from performing against the American interests from Afghanistan. So they can regroup, they can recruit, they can re-energize themselves, they can plan and everything from Afghanistan, they act from some other area. So this is something which is very dangerous. And as we are speaking, there are 23 terrorist groups, regional and international, in Afghanistan. 23. Yeah.
Okay, we know about Al Qaeda, we know about ISIS. Who are some of these other groups?
For example, I can start from the Ansarullah, the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, Jaish Muhammad, Lashkar Tayyiba, and so on and so forth. I can provide the list. It's 23. That all of these groups, they are basically their intention, maybe just one or two of them, it is for Afghanistan, but the rest of them, it is international. They are after exporting this mentality, this extremist terrorist mentality. And right now, Afghanistan is becoming a very safe haven for them to reside, to sit, to recruit, and to expand, especially with the environment that the Taliban are providing for them. For example, stripping of women from education, which makes the country even more extreme. Completely eradicating the former educational curriculum in the country and bringing their own way of curriculums and their own curriculum and their own methods. It's making even more extreme. And also they're planning to establish each district of Afghanistan, which we have above a couple of hundreds of districts in Afghanistan, not provinces, districts, one madrasa in each of them. It means that we will have hundreds of madrasas which will produce hundreds of students, which will brainwash kids
They want to put a madrasa in every district.
In every district.
It's 216, as I recall, isn't it? It's I know this because I've done the math study. So you're talking roughly 200 madrasas that would be trained. And maybe the Taliban, because before the Taliban allowed groups to operate, and obviously our kid was invited in. There were multiple groups, obviously. As I recall, my father was one of the commanders of one of the 7 groups. But of course, your father was killed before 9/11. But I know this because teammates, friends of mine, who did the special force were the first ODAs, Operational Detachment Alphas, that went in and they partnered with each Northern Alliance. There were 7, as I recall, 7 major elements where a Green Beret team was formed in and partnered. So it was 7 groups fighting. Who besides the National Resistance Front is going to counter the Taliban? Who besides your organization is standing up? Or are you guys alone? You've got one show in town that's going to be standing up to what is potentially another precursor to 9/11 down the road.
So to answer that, I need to emphasize one thing. I need to say, yes, there are more than 200 madrasas are being built in every district as we are speaking. And their goal is to recruit as much of the kids as they can, to brainwash them, to prepare them. So basically to have an army of brainwashed kids who are ready to go to heaven, and also they're ready to fight until death, and they're ready to export it. And for example, in many provinces of Afghanistan, there are active training camps run by Al-Qaeda. For example, months before the attack on Ayman al-Zawahiri in Kabul, in an interview that I had, I mentioned that the leader of Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda leadership is in Afghanistan. Way before.
Did your network know that he was in Kabul? How much intel was it widely known, like the secret that was not a secret that everyone in Afghanistan knew? Because there's been a intentional decision to not even talk about Afghanistan. I live in Tampa, Florida. It's the headquarters for U.S. Central Command. 6 months ago, I met an event. I met an analyst who works in the building chief. She still works for the intelligence community. And she said to me, since September 1, last year, she said, I have not seen an email, a PowerPoint, or a white paper with the word Afghanistan in it. So the headquarters is essentially pretending like the department doesn't exist. So if we don't talk about the department doesn't exist, this is how we're looking at the border right now in the same light. But like you just laid out some pretty stark news that 200 plus madrasas are being built. And if Al Qaeda was allowed to live and operate in Zawahiri, live freely in Kabul, downtown Kabul, are the Taliban saying to the U.S. in the agreements when they were supposed to be an ally against Al Qaeda and now they're going to let all these groups flourish? Is the Taliban, of those 23 groups, are they aligned with the Taliban? Or are the Taliban going to have to do it? You know what I mean? Like, that's why I'm asking, you guys, the only show in town that will confront what's now growing a serious front.
One thing is that the Taliban, I need to to really clarify one thing is that many people, they try to tell to us, to those who are not extremists, to the moderates, to the people who believe in democracy, to believe in sort of a liberal society. They're saying that, okay, the Taliban are moderate compared to the ISIS. Let's take this argument. Okay, they're more moderate than the ISIS. If I ask you, tell me one example, just one, of one action that the ISIS does that the Taliban do not, which makes ISIS more extreme than the Taliban. One, not even two. What the ISIS do, which would make them even more extreme than the Taliban, that the Taliban do not, or they did not do in the past 20 years. It is identical. The mentality is identical. The ideology is identical. The behavior and the way they conduct themselves and behave themselves, it's identical. Even the way, for example, the Taliban and the pickups, they just come into the towns. Exactly like that it is. The ISIS is behaving. So the thing is that if it is from beheading on broadcast, the Taliban are committing it as we are speaking. If it is about killing a business, they're doing it as we are speaking. So all the other terrorist groups as we are speaking, the Taliban in some area might have clashed over the territory, not ideology. Ideology is all the same. So therefore, especially if the leadership, let's say they become materialistic, they have something to lose, so they want to cooperate to some scale. The food soldiers and commanders that they have been preached all the past 20 years that we are jihadists for Islamic Khilafah or Islamic, let's say, government in the whole world, or to export it. How can they change it now? So the food soldiers and commanders that they fought for this, and their goal is to go to Central Asia, to go west, to go like Europe, they're not going to accept it. So they are collaborating and cooperating, and we have evidence. As I said, that I had evidence of the presence of leadership of Al-Qaeda residing in Afghanistan in Kabul. I also have evidence because in the past 1 year, one thing that we did, we have ears and eyes in the ground. So one thing that we have is we have clear evidence, concrete evidence of collaboration and cooperation of Taliban and ISIS. That they are collaborating and cooperating together. And also I have evidence of many sort of provinces that there are military camps. As we are speaking, they're being built, teaching how to make bombs, how to make suicide vests, how to make the car bombs, all of it. Every Afghanistan is liberated in their mentality. Why they are preparing all of these things? So I believe Afghanistan is becoming a training camp, a huge training camp and prison for export of the terrorists. And it is very, very dangerous. We need to understand the danger of this problem. Unfortunately, the event of Ukraine and the problem and the war in Ukraine, it overtook the attention of Afghanistan. But Afghanistan is a ticking bomb.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard as someone who, my entire career was in the Central region. That's where I spent virtually my entire career. Our national focus for 2 decades plus, and really 4 decades if you go back to the 1979 American embassy being overthrown. It's a focus of the region for the U.S., but we've lifted and shifted to China and other places. That's what the national focus is for the U.S. But everything we're laying out is the same circumstances leading up to 9/11. A rapid terrorist state, the Taliban.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are 2 medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our CDM.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and Ira. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you.
що я щойно побачила, як летить ракета. І я почула це.
Hey, Todd.
Sorry, I just had the mute on. I've got to change your. I got to change the intro to put your name on it, but for the Ukrainian SitRep there. But that was just the intro to our AFP Pods show that we've been doing for years now on what's going on in the Ukraine war. So we're going to morph that into the SCIF on Tuesdays at 11, as you and I talk, and we're going to give updates on what's happening in country. So we talked earlier. Yesterday we had negotiations. Or at least a phone call between Trump and Putin. Before that, there were negotiations in Istanbul. The Ukrainians were angry at the Russian position of essentially taking the territories in the east and security guarantees. And now Trump is out saying, well, you know, we might just walk away from the whole thing. And it's really scaring the Europeans. And it's kind of what you and I said. We just have to back away from this and let this border war play itself out. Without all this foreign influence and proxy war and all this stuff. But what say you?
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, Russia's position has not changed. It's been the same for at least a year. And, it rests on four key pillars: the territories, demilitarization of Ukraine. They're not going to leave Ukraine armed to the teeth and, preparing for a war 2 years from now. The denazification of Ukraine, which every Westerner should be also backing, because it's a real thing. And, to be on the side of Nazis is kind of ironic. We just celebrated the 80th anniversary of World War II. And then finally, no NATO involvement. And, on the Ukraine side, there's been absolutely no signs or signals that they're willing to compromise on any of those. We know that Zelensky is under the gun from the Nazis, who are now the most powerful element, certainly in the military. And the military is the most powerful institution in Ukraine.
And they're threatening the president, right? I mean, we think they're keeping the war. Part of the influence to keep the war going is the nationalist, Nazi aspect, Azov battalions, et cetera, right sector, et cetera, is keeping the war going and pressuring the Zelensky to keep going, right?
Right, and it's kind of ironic. The war started because the neo-Nazis attacked eastern Ukraine, which is where all the ethnic Russians and the small Jewish population mostly lives in Ukraine. And the charter of the neo-Nazis is Ukraine for Ukrainians, pure blood only, which is farcical. There's no such thing. We're all from the same 100 or so humans who survived, 100,000 years ago, and have wandered all over the planet. So that's ironic. It's ironic that they began ethnic cleansing in eastern Ukraine, and that's why all of the oblasts and regions in questions voted for first just autonomy. They would have been happy with autonomy, but Ukraine wouldn't sign the Minsk agreements, and they turned that into independence and then secession and affiliation with Russia. So the people who live in those oblasts want to be part of Russia. And, these neo-Nazis, again, given what I just told you, are saying, this is a non-negotiable. We want those regions back. Well, they're not your regions, and people live there, and they don't want any part of Ukraine or the neo-Nazis anymore. So it's a central part of it. The negotiations is great. It's, we should all be proud that, it's our president and our country that's driving the peace talks. But at the same time, to make peace work, both sides, Russia and Ukraine, are going to have to make some serious concessions. And if we want to be the leaders of the peace talks, and if we want to make this happen, we need to lead by example. And the way to do that is to show that we're serious and make a concession ourselves. And that concession, you just said it, is pull all Americans out of Ukraine, specifically the American military that under the Biden administration has been running this war from 2022 forward. And I don't believe President Trump fully understands, our involvement, our micromanagement, and the implications of that. I don't believe that many of the advisors that he has are giving him good info. We talked about Kellogg and his 22-point plan that he made with Ukraine, not with Russia. I heard Sebastian Gorka go off the other day and say something completely ridiculous. President Trump needs new advisors. I think Marco Rubio is doing a great job. What Marco Rubio needs to do to set his own foundational knowledge of what's happened in that war is to declassify and read all the cables, and he doesn't need a lot, from November 1st of 2013 to April 1st of 2014, so he can see that it was us in the EU who overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine and then enabled the neo-Nazis to run in the power vacuum, the Ukrainian government, start the ethnic war, and provoke the Russians to invade in 2022. And, I think we have a few clips that underscore a lot of that, and and how important it is. And when we play these clips, remember, Russia understands what's happening. As I've said on your show in the past, I spend between an hour and 2 hours a day just on the frontline trace of the war. And I have commercial satellite feed, and I also have guys on the ground who validate what's happening. And there's no back and forth in this war. It's all back. Ukraine is being pushed back. Russia continues to gain. They've almost surrounded Pavlovsk at this point. They're very methodically moving around both sides, north and south of Pavlovsk. And it's nothing but progress. There's no human wave attacks, as the propaganda influencers try to continue to tell people. Russia's very methodical. They understand this is a light infantry war, and if you want to win, you've got to keep your experienced light infantrymen alive, because you can't shake and bake a light infantryman like Ukraine's trying to do.
Exactly. And, we talked, before we get to the clips, we talked about what one of the drivers behind the war is, the globalist agenda. And I see the EU wants this territory. They want the resources. They want the land. They want the port. But the EU is turning into very tyrannical, you could say fascist government, stopping people from, praying outside of a clinic, censoring, putting people in jail for Facebook posts, all this kind of stuff, banning Rumble in France. You could make a connection between that kind of Fourth Reich scenario into what's going on in Ukraine. I mean, that connection is there, right?
Definitely. Again, Todd, people need to understand the EU's motivation and why this started. We were carrying the water for the EU. And whenever I say I'm talking about the administrative government administrators under the Biden administration. What happened could never have happened under anything but that crazed administration with the incompetent people, Blinken, Austin, Jake Sullivan, and Joe Biden himself, who we now know every day becomes more and more of a fact to people who didn't believe that he was an illegitimate president too. Putin knows that. He said it in the beginning. But, what they did and the senseless decisions they made were all at the behest of the EU. And the EU's motivation is simple. They want to be the biggest, most powerful political force and economic force in the world. They want to overtake the US, China, and India with their combined country GDP. They saw Ukraine as the great, the carrot on top of the cake. Yes, for its agriculture, its natural resources, and of course, its geography, its port on the Black Sea. And that's why they were so committed to this. That's why they still are. The first rule of digging a bad hole is stop digging, but senseless people don't get that. They just keep digging, and that's what they're doing. The EU does not want to admit they were wrong. They want Ukraine to fight to the last Ukrainian, and hopefully something will happen. And
then they can make it the first African country in Europe. They can import all these people if the Ukrainians are gone, That's
an actual plan. That's an actual plan. They've already stated that too. So it's you would never believe it if it was written in a book, but that's what kind of leaders I mentioned all those people in the Biden administration, and it's the same. Ursula von der Leyen. They have no real world experience. They're global elitists who've never done anything, who've never gotten their hands dirty, never worked in a grocery store, never been in the military, never traveled internationally on their own or trying to do a business deal internationally. So they just don't understand the human dynamic or how the real world works. And
they may have this agenda to get more powerful, but it's going the other way. I mean, they've destroyed their industry, their manufacturing, their energy sources. It's just, going backwards. So and they're losing this conflict. But then you get the what are they going to do to, France and Britain are talking about nuclear weapons. I mean, it's insane. I mean, you had Macron saying we're going to give Germany our nuclear weapon umbrella yesterday. I mean, it's insane. Well, which ones did you want to bring up? We have
go ahead and bring up. Let's go first with the conscription, and then we'll go to
we showed this yesterday. I'm going to show this one short tape, and then we're going to do a longer one. But just warn the audience, it's a little disturbing if you have kids around. But here we go.
Боже. Вызывайте скорую. Кошмар.
So that was just one where the bounty hunters tried to pull these guys off the street. He resisted, so they hit him in the head and obviously hurt him badly, and it looks like he died. But we have another tape, which is some more conscription videos, which I'll show now. Wrong one. Sorry about that.
A Kalashnikov cocked at a father and child. Military recruiters storming gyms, threatening men with the loss of their parental rights. The war for Ukraine's survival has taken an internal turn, and it's growing darker. These are not scenes from a dystopian screenplay. They're real incidents emerging from present-day Ukraine, where a desperate drive for manpower is pushing the state's mobilization machine into increasingly coercive and, in some cases, brutal territory. One viral clip shows Ukrainian recruitment officers confronting a father, walking with his young son. As tensions escalated, an officer pointed a rifle at the pair, until shocked bystanders stepped in and beat the recruiters, an act many saw as the public's breaking point in a long-growing resentment toward forced conscription.
It's a great summary.
Disturbing encounter shared by Sputnik.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I'll send it back to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's so important, and this is why your show is so important, Todd. No one saw that who watches Western mainstream media. That won't make any of the networks, any of the BBC, the international mainstream media. But that's reality right there. And, you know, in these times where we're drowning in propaganda, you have to believe that you got to make your decisions off reality. And so don't dismiss that. You saw just a panoply of clips there of these recruiters beating, killing, and threatening people to join the Ukrainian military, forced conscription. I believe never in the history of modern war has a country won a war that had to force people to fight. I don't
Well, you know,
believe
people have seen the movie with Nicole Kidman and about Cold Mountain. It's the same thing. The South was doing the same thing, conscripting people brutally, and you're right, they lost, because when you get to that point, the motivation, to win is gone, right?
Well, yeah, it's the motivation, but it's also that the people know, and what's so important about that one clip where the guy lifts the assault weapon above his head and then is attacked by bystanders. The narrator sums it up perfectly. He says, this is a breaking point. The people bystanders are starting to jump in, attacking government officials with weapons who are trying to force these individuals into the military. So, you know, the first thing I'd say about the ridiculousness of this and the senselessness is, you don't want those guys fighting on your front line. So
yeah, you don't want to be in a foxhole with some guy who's going to frag you, right?
Right. You can't win. But the second thing is, the people understand what's happening in this war. They understand the senselessness. They understand that they've got a president they did not vote for, who is more akin to, compared to a king. He's more of a monarch than a president. He's an actor comedian with, again, no qualifications in the real world. And they know that. But both the citizens and the soldiers of Ukraine are trapped. They have no voice. All of Ukrainian media is controlled by the Ukrainian government. And you're seeing this uprising now, which happens no matter where you are. Humans are humans. We have empathy, we have compassion, and we want to be free. And so when they see what's happening and understand the background and understand how many men and how many Gold Star families are all around them that will have a hole in their heart for the rest of their lives because fathers, brothers, sons are all dead. You're seeing the breaking point, and Russia knows that too. So you see those tapes from the Russian side. Russia is turning recruits away. And again, you mentioned earlier the opposite of what all of these global elitists wanted to happen has happened. Russia is the most united country on, it's not hyperbolic to say, on earth right now. They're the proudest of their country. They feel the most close-knit, and they're not a homogenous demographic either. They're not even religiously. As we mentioned on last show, it's the first time I've ever seen Christians and Muslims fighting together, and fighting together in a highly motivated fashion and highly effective fashion. So, the reality, the great thing about your show is it's a behind the curtains peek at reality that everyone needs to internalize. And I hope that President Trump's advisors see this also and internalize it, because Russia knows it too. So I mentioned the citizens; those are the citizens. Next, let's go to the soldiers.
Let me
who
just
also
read
have no
something.
blood.
Let me just read something. I received that first video we showed from a source in Kiev, and he said, bounty hunters hit the man in the head. He started collapsing. They threw him on the ground and drove away in Odessa. Similar accidents happen every day in all cities every day. It's staged slaughter. It's a kill a men slaughter theater. Somewhat broken English here. I'm desperate. I am crying. I am crying for the thousands of dead. I am crying for the years wasted. I'm crying because of the years of lying to normal, adequate people who just wanted to live simple life and raise their kids. I mean, that's what's going on in Ukraine. So anyway,
Yep.
what did you want? Where did you want to go next?
Yeah, so we mentioned citizens and soldiers have no voice. They're crying out for help. Those are the citizens. Let's go to the soldiers. We just had a battalion commander from the 47th Brigade, Magura, resign. And it's a little tough for me to see that, but I'll just read first what he says. And his name is Alexander Shurskin, as I mentioned, from the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade. And here's what he said. He stated that the assigned combat missions were inappropriate, the personnel losses were unjustifiably high, and the systematic incompetence of the command, according to him, instead of effectively managing the situation on the ground, all the leadership are capable of is reprimands, internal investigations, and disciplinary sanctions. Their political games and understanding of the real situation have nothing to do with reality, and they have completely lost touch with reality, Shearskin emphasized. So this was also published in Ukraine news, which is incredible. It shows you, again, what's happening. For the Ukrainians to publish it is amazing. But there's nothing new about this. And we've talked about before, I have a number of articles on Substack, peteblaber.substack.com. One is what's wrong with the Ukrainian military. The other one is, Dear President Trump, it's time to pull all American forces out of Ukraine. And so just to that battalion commander's points, and I should add, he was part of the counteroffensive into Kursk, where Ukraine lost 69,000 men, 11,000 more than we lost in the Vietnam War. And he's also part of the Pavlovsk defense, which is right now in the process of being surrounded. So is this something new? No, it's not. Let's go back to 2021, where a guy named Glenn Grant, the first military and lead advisor of the Ukraine military in 2014, and then served continuously all the way to 2021, loves Ukraine, loves Ukrainians, cares deeply about the military, wrote a full report titled Why the Ukrainian Defense System Fails to Reform and Why U.S. Support is Less Than Optimal and What We Can Do Better. And I'm going to read you one paragraph from that. 7 years of NATO reorganization, 2014 to 2021, and indoctrination created a Ukrainian military culture of blind obedience and negative reinforcement. The consequences on the battlefield are devastating. Soldiers won't act without orders for fear of punishment. Decisions, even for the purchase of socks, are always made at the highest level. Ukrainian army generals and politicians operating out of Kyiv micromanage their battlefield forces down to the platoon level. So that was 2021. We also just had the New York Times publish a 10,000 word feature article called The Secret History of the War in Ukraine, the untold story of American and British military role in the war in Ukraine. And I wrote an article on that, but I want to read a couple quick excerpts out of that. The secret location where NATO and Ukraine partnership commanded and controlled all combat operations was at the U.S. Army garrison in Wiesbaden, Germany, located 1,400 miles from the front lines and known as the Fusion Center. They are still there today. They're still commanding and controlling. A vast American intelligence collection effort both guided big picture battle strategy and funneled precise targeting information down to Ukrainian soldiers in the field. And now I want to connect the two. The lesson and the historical takeaway from what this battalion commander is crying out for people to listen to today, and what veterans of the global war against terrorists on the American side after 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq is that hierarchical decision making by disconnected chains of command never has and never will make sense of any situation that entail any degree of complexity, i.e. war. The higher the degree of complexity, the more senseless the detached hierarchy gets. The logic of why is self-evident, and we need to internalize this. The purpose of our nervous system is to make sense of what's going on around us and sensible choices about what to do next. And the only way our nervous system works is through our senses: sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. If you aren't in touch with the environment, you can't make sense of it. And if you're trying to make sense from 1,400 miles away in Wiesbaden or 300 to 600 miles away in Kyiv, the decisions you're making are senseless. And sometimes I'm very hopeful that people are reading these. I know my buddies on the ground are spreading the word around, but let's just go back to that last sentence that the battalion commander who resigned said, and that is this: they have completely lost touch with reality. They have no understanding of the real situation, which has nothing to do with reality. And that's what's going on. And again, tying all of it back to the peace talks, the Ukrainian citizens and soldiers have no voice. They're being led to slaughter by incompetent generals and incompetent US and EU overlords who are fine with fighting to the last Ukrainian. These peace talks are serious. And again, if we want the U.S. to lead these peace talks, we need to lead by example, make the first concession, which is pull all U.S. personnel out of Ukraine and save the rest of Ukraine and the rest of the Ukrainians.
Well, the blob generals, you sent me this, David Petraeus. I mean, talking about just not reality. I mean, this is a narrative push if I've ever seen one, right?
Yeah, and I wish, maybe next show will show. Have you seen Mariupol? It's gorgeous. They've almost rebuilt it. Russia has. There's no forcible deporting of civilians. You can watch on videotape. The Russians, for instance, in Kursk, went house to house. Most of the people who stayed are the people who stay in any country on earth, the old people. These are pensioners. They have no money. They have no relatives left. They're not going to leave their house. But the Russians went house to house after they retook Kursk and said, please come with us. We want to feed you. And most of them still stayed. So they give them, food. They give them sustainment packages. There's no forceful repatriation of people out of those regions. And there was no substance to that. I just, when I read that the first time, I was like, wow, talk about grasping for straws and saying nothing in the process of doing it. But that's what we're up against, this propaganda machine of paid influencers who, for some reason, have thrown their lot in with the global elitists and are fine with Ukraine fighting to the last Ukrainian and the last inch of their country.
I want to make a quick point. I spent a lot of time in Ukraine, as you did, and this is an article. I took a train from Kiev to Mariupol. This was in 2015. Incredibly beautiful city. It's and the people are what amazed me. I mean, and I just wrote this because this was a guy's playing chess in the park. This is look at this picture. I mean, it's a grandmother, babushka, taking her granddaughter to school. The Ukrainian people are wonderful, and
they are.
We destroyed it intentionally, in my view, and it's just horrific what's been done. But you can find this on our Eastern European site, tsarizm.com, tsarizm.com. Great, Pete. Anything else you want to get out?
No, that's it for today.
Okay, we'll see you next Tuesday at 11 on Ukraine SitRep, which is our normal schedule. So check us back then to see Pete, and we'll be back after this break. Thank you.
report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. These pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's go 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker, stealing all the alcohol.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I hope you enjoyed Pete Blaber. We're going to do that every Tuesday at 11 on Ukraine SitRep on the SCIF. You can watch it on X, on Gettr, on YouTube, on Rumble. We're everywhere that we can get, and please check it out next week. So I want to get right into some of the other stories. This is a story on Zionism, our Middle Eastern site that deals with Israeli issues. Israeli opposition leader says killing babies is a hobby for the Israeli government. This is a obviously controversial position, but we are just going to report on it, and you decide. The ex-general said Israel is becoming a pariah state. The prime minister accused him of anti-Semitic blood libel. The IDF chief condemns comments casting doubt on soldiers' morality. Lapid said it's a gift to our enemies. But there's also a lot of reporting that Trump has run out of patience with Netanyahu and wants him to end the war. This was all reported in the Times of Israel, so we're not making this up. You can go there and read it. But what this guy said is that Israel is on the way to becoming a pariah state like South Africa was if we don't to return to acting like a sane country. A sane country does not fight against civilians, does not kill babies as a hobby, and does not give itself the aim of expelling populations, which is what Israel is doing. They're moving the population from Gaza, destroying most of the strip, moving the entire population to the south, and then they want to move them to another country. So it's a little unclear as to what Trump's position is on all of this. He said, I don't want Gazans forcibly removed. If they do want to leave, we'll give them a way out. But this is becoming very, very tense in Israel. You have the government of Netanyahu, who is being attacked on multiple levels. And let's be real, there's obviously an agenda in the media to put out a certain narrative on Israel right now. But this is what's going on in country. You need to be aware of it. We'll keep you up to date on what's happening there. On another issue, massive cellular outage in Spain. is Spain becoming the new testing ground for the globalist agenda? A few weeks ago, the electric power grid went down, and now the internet and cellular power grid went down today. So what is that? Part of it is that Europe has intentionally destroyed, as we discussed with Pete Blaber, intentionally destroyed their own economy, energy, manufacturing, etc. Spain is not immune to that. And so are they practicing? Is this what they wanted to do in the U.S.? That's a big issue. You know, you had the CCP saying they put, or reporting that the CCP put electronic devices in all the solar panels that can shut down the solar panels. Guess what? That's not cool. We are all dependent on renewable power now, where you can shut it down electrically, as opposed to organic power that you can drill out of the ground and put it in your car. You're not connected to the grid. You can do what you want. It's freedom. And guess what? The whole agenda for climate change is to install this power grid that they can shut you down completely. So that's a huge story that we're going to stay on. It's not over yet. Also, in the Pacific, if you go to armedforces.press, our military site, preparation of the seabed battlefield for the upcoming possible Taiwan invasion. They are going under and mapping all of the Taiwanese infrastructure underwater, undersea cables. That's internet, it's communications, it's finance, it's connection to the world. So this is a big tell. This is a canary in the coal mine that China is getting ready. If they are told, the military is going to be ready to do whatever Xi Jinping says. And we're getting to a very difficult point with China. The U.S. military is rebuilding. They don't have a lot of time to successfully implement this strategy, 5 years at the most. So they're getting ready. Let's just be honest. And that's what Commander Salamander, who's a contributor, has a wonderful podcast and Substack, but he's a contributor to armedforces.press. He helps me on our Pacific SitRep podcast, which you can find on AFP. And by the way, we will post the Ukraine SitRep on AFP that we just did with Pete Blaber. We'll get that out later today. A story you need to be aware of. One other story, which we talked about with Pete, Putin says peace possible after call with Trump. And there's a lot of reporting that Trump has made it clear to Ukraine and to Europe that he will walk away and let the chips fall where they may in Ukraine. And then you had Lavrov out this morning saying, well, a lot of Russians are just looking now at complete surrender, unconditional surrender of the Ukrainian military. What we can say is we don't know where this is going to go. So I think that Trump and Putin see a lot of economic cooperation, and this war was not Trump's war, as he said yesterday. And I think he's going to end it one way or the other, but we will see. And again, we are staying on this story more than anyone. We have been for 10 years. There's a lot of copycats out there in Conservative Inc., but we are the only ones with a team on the ground in Ukraine, the only Conservative Inc. station that tells the truth on all of this and have done so for years. Let's move to Georgia. The GOP we've talked about with Bill Quinn on the Georgia show, we've had Bill on recently, is really corrupt in Georgia, and you have a lot of reporting coming out on the despotic actions of the GOP chairman, Josh McKoon. There's an election at the Georgia GOP convention in a couple of weeks, and so the tension in Georgia is getting very dire. You have division among the establishment, pro-Kemp, pro-globalist wing, and then you have the grassroots who are attempting to regain power and regain control of the grand old party in the great state of Georgia. It's not over yet. Who knows where this one's going to go? But, Kemp has been flying to Davos many times. He's working for Chinese chemical companies instead of the people of Georgia. People of Georgia don't like it, but they can't get power because of people like Josh McKoon, who won't let them into the party and are doing a lot of things that are not that someone that wants, a free and democratic system would be doing. So you can find this reporting at the Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com, and where we, again, CDM is way out in front of others, and we tell the truth in Georgia, and we've taken the arrows from it. So please support us. That's one thing I want to say. Please support free media, support our sponsors, support the wellness company, buy some Alp. If you're a Zen person, don't buy the Zen, get the non-woke Alp, and you can find all of these on any of our publications, where to get to all this stuff. Top menu on cdm.press. All of our sponsors are listed. Please support them and support our no ad subscriptions. This is the big ask. If you're a consumer of free news and free media and you want a free future for your children and grandchildren, please support our no ad subscriptions. The top right corner of all the sites, subscribe with no ads, and you will get access to all 13 CDM sites with no advertisements, no pop-ups on your phone, etc. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and we will talk about Europe. We'll be right back.
Okay, ready?
Ready. So we're out in the field in South Dakota shooting pheasants, and we're coming out here to a Milo field you can see behind us, and I was throwing in an ALP, someone else was using a tobacco product, and then somebody, and I'm not going to name names, pulled that out in public at a hunt. And so that's obviously yesterday. What we have here, ALP, is tomorrow, and we're going to make that official by symbolically ending the long reign of this product. Willie Robertson happened to be hunting with us. We don't have a mechanical fur, but we do have former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. With an arm. Willie's got a 12 gauge. I've got my trusty 20. And we're going to see what we can do to usher out the Zen era.
Yes!
So, I should say, alppouch.com. For sale now, alppouch.com. Usher in tomorrow a brand new world of nicotine pouches. The American Lip Pillow on sale now.
Warning! This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big, proud American Eagle logo.
Welcome back to the SCIF. One of our great shows that gets a lot of feedback. We taped on Sunday. We tape it, you try to do it every week, but it doesn't always happen because people have their own schedules. But it's with our guys in Europe, in Austria, in Germany, and the UK. We call it Eurobites. It's a great show. We taped one Sunday. I'm just going to play a little bit of it so you can get a taste. We'll put up the whole show and stream it on X and put it on Rumble this afternoon. But here it is. Great show with the guys, and just to give you a taste of our capabilities in Europe that we're growing.
So, welcome to this episode of Eurobyte. We have the 18th of May, 2025, and just so much has happened this year. And well, we always joke and always make the same lame joke every episode. We blink. And I wouldn't have been surprised in the year 2025 if the meme had come true and suddenly in the Vatican, Donald Trump would actually have appeared in full-on Pope regalia. I mean, you know, it's 2025 and 2024. You know, what we thought reality has been totally pushed to the side. But yes, so interesting things have been happening, and we'll just laser focus on the two major European not continental, one of them is not, the two major Western European powers, one of them being Great Britain, the other one being Germany. Germany, obviously, very interesting developments vis-a-vis wanting to ban the AfD in order to save democracy and having the domestic spy agency categorizing AfD as really, really extremist. And that's why in order to save democracy, we must ban them. And interestingly enough, this week, interesting turn of events. Surprise! The the case of one of the 17 domestic spy agencies wasn't quite as ironclad as we thought. So we're going to get into that. Fabian's already.
Let me ask you: is it weird to you that you have 17 domestic spy agencies and we have 17? I just, it's just a weird.
Well, there will be an interesting numerological or otherwise rabbit hole to go down to. If any of the viewers have got any insights, I'd love to hear it. I mean,
it's some kind of Fibonacci connection, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, oh God, brings me back to my programming classes and such. Yeah. So lots of stuff happening in Germany, and Fabian is already very happy to jump on that, and pointing out in the United Kingdom, oh goodness, has Keir Starmer, also monikered as Keir Starling, suddenly gone really, really based, really, really turned into Enoch Powell? We're going to get into that in 1 second. But Fabian, what is happening in Germany with one of our 17 domestic spy agencies? Have they changed their mind? Oh, oops, sorry, my bad. The AfD is no longer as extremist as we thought. Over to you.
All right. So thank you. And it's good to be here, guys. Good to be back. I am going to go completely on theory and prediction lane, but here we go. I personally believe that the network of the AfD within the MAGA movement is very strong. So strong that members of Congress, senators, speak out in favor of the AfD. Members of the cabinet speak it. I mean, Marco Rubio, making the case for the AfD. You sort of have to make a conclusion that in the Biden years, some of the AfD members were going to America, going to CPAC, going to the Young Republicans in New York, going to a lot of MAGA Republicans, and building networks that are now using that power leverage to put pressure on the German government. Again, this is completely my opinion, my theory, but I believe this is a core example of the international right, if you just want to call it like that for a second, working together and putting pressure on the German government, basically saying, if you guys want to continue to work with us, we are not going to deal with you spying on your own people, spying on your own parties. And look, J.D. Vance made the case in Munich. He said, we cannot protect freedom if you can't uphold freedom of speech. We're not going to work with this together. This comes out of the mouth of J.D. Vance himself personally. But the rest of that, I believe that during the Biden years, the AfD really used that chance to build strong networks in Washington, in America, with the MAGA movement to say, we're not going to put up with this anymore. I have zero proof, but I believe the way that play was run, it seems very evident that what I just said is the case.
Good theory. I like it.
I haven't come across it, but I mean to lend credence to what Fabian just said. I mean, things started definitely changing when suddenly Elon Musk had an interview with Alice Weidel, the current head of AfD, who defies a lot of the stereotypes that they would have against the far right person, because Alice Weidel is an open gay woman, never made two bones about it, speaks Chinese, is entrepreneurial. So, and then Elon Musk had an interview with her, and the interview was of mixed quality. I mean, both of them had interesting takes on the German past and all. Where I'm like, well, I mean, much as I like both of you, you're not entirely accurate. Be that as it may, it lends credence to what Fabian says. But something else has happened. So there's a professor of constitutional law from the University of Oldenburg. Now, the University of Oldenburg is not the most prestigious university in Germany, and it's a pretty far left university. However, every now and then you come across principled leftist people, and that professor from the University of Oldenburg had gone over the expose of the domestic spy agency. And mind you, things in the German deep state increasingly are weird. So quick reminder, flashback 2024, Fabian, where the identitarian activist Martin Sellner had a conference in Potsdam, and the German media, the German government, and George Soros subsidized fact-checking network Corrective somehow managed to get hold of what was said in the room, even though they weren't invited. So the domestic spy agency seems to have passed items on to Corrective, and interesting enough, Greenpeace nowadays also does far-right watching. So that definitely was interesting. And
that was back in November of 2023.
Right.
And when the AfD, in the first time in their history, reached the 20% mark in the approval polls, that's when they rolled out that story. You have to remember, at the same time, there were heavy farmer protests. And I believe that the farming lobby in Germany is one of the last traditional conservative bastions of the working class, if you will, the working people. The German farmers are still very conservative. Remember, these were the guys that, and again, this is not just Bavarian farmers. This is German farmers all over. These are the guys that, with their tractors, stopped the former Green Minister of Economics, Robert Habeck, from entering the shore.
So that's Eurobytes. We're going to post it on cdm.press today. It'll be on Rumble. It'll be on YouTube. And we'll stream it on X either today or tomorrow, this episode. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 to noon, Monday through Friday on the SCIF, the best intel program out there. Really love your participation, and we'll see you tomorrow. And we got some great guests, Roger Stone and Ali Nazari of the Taliban, the Afghan resistance against the Taliban, the foreign minister for them. So see you tomorrow. Thank you.